Abraham Lincoln once said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." Abraham Lincoln is one of the most notable presidents of this nation's history. He has been noted down through the years for his trustworthiness, strength of character, and impeccable leadership abilities. This presentation is going to discuss a brief biography of Abraham Lincoln, as well as 5 leadership theories that are evident in the way that he led our country. First, we will begin with a biography on Lincoln. He truly embodied what it meant to rise to greatness no matter what your background is. Abraham Lincoln was born in the year 1809 to a poor family in Kentucky. With little to no formal education available to him, most of what he learned was self-taught. He later calculated less than a year total of formal schooling in his childhood. His mother died when he was 9 years old, and his father remarried soon after. He was very close to his stepmother, and she described him as a boy of uncommon natural talents. All throughout his childhood he was noted for his love of reading, which is how he spent most of his free time. Rich Lowry describes in his book, Lincoln Unbound, that books lifted Lincoln's sights and gave him the skills to transcend his upbringing. Oswald Sanders describes the importance of reading and leadership in his book, Spiritual Leadership. He states that if a man is known by the company he keeps, so also his character is reflected in the books he reads. He was also known for making speeches and practicing them to groups of men while they worked. His father had to eventually forbid him from reciting speeches to them while they were working, because they would not get their work done while Lincoln was there. He always brought a sense of humor to gatherings of men with his limitless stories. Abraham Lincoln learned to work hard from a young age, helping his father clear their new land while they built their family log cabin. He once stated that his father taught him to work, but never taught him to love it. As he grew older, he enlisted in every job imaginable, sometimes making as little as 10 cents a day. On some occasions, he did not get to keep the profits that he earned, which later gave him a sense of what slaves were going through at that time. He once said, "A person, as a basic matter of justice, deserves to keep what he earned." Abraham Lincoln was noted for his trustworthiness, and it made him a natural umpire in the competitions in the community. He later began studying law and saw it as a stepping stone to a political life, and ran for his first political office at the age of 23. Lincoln realized that reading and talking, which he loved so much, were marks of merit in the political realm, not laziness. After serving on Congress and in the Senate, he was later nominated as the Republican presidential candidate in 1860 and went on to win the election. He was also the first president, since Andrew Jackson, to be elected to a second term. It is no question that Abraham Lincoln is still one of America's greatest presidents to this day, and he had many aspects in his leadership that made him so great. We will be evaluating 5 different leadership theories as presented in Peter Northhouse's Leadership Theory and Practice. We will see the aspects of Abraham Lincoln's leadership that reflected these theories and approaches. The first leadership theory that we will discuss is transformational leadership. Transformational leadership is a process that changes and transforms people. It includes assessing followers' motives, satisfying their needs, and treating them as full human beings. Transformational leadership influences followers to accomplish more than what is usually required of them. There are several behaviors that transformational leaders exhibit. First, they model the way for their followers by being clear about their own values and philosophy. Effective transformational leaders inspire a shared vision and challenge their followers to go above and beyond to do things for others. Transformational leaders challenge the process by having a willingness to step into the unknown and change the status quo. Transformational leaders enable others to act by first building trust and a sense of teamwork. Transformational leaders encourage the heart of their followers through rewarding them for their accomplishments. Major Michael Sharma of the United States Air Force described Lincoln's transformational leadership qualities by noting his vision not only to preserve the Union, but also his vision of reconstructing the Union without malice or desire for revenge. Lincoln encouraged his soldiers to meet goals with integrity and commanded the nation to do the same. In his book, Rise to Greatness, David Von Drehl writes that millions of lives were transformed through Lincoln's leadership. The lives of slaves who were to be freed, and of the slave owners who would be impoverished. The lives of the soldiers and their families who bore the suffering of the first all-out war of the industrial age. The lives of those who would profit from new inventions, longer railroads, and modern finance, as well as the lives of students who would be educated in great public universities. Abraham Lincoln was a transformational leader. The next leadership theory that we will discuss is inclusive leadership. Inclusive leadership requires consideration of belongingness, but also uniqueness of the group. Inclusive leaders play a key role in creating an inclusive organization as a result of their behavior toward others. Inclusive leaders incorporate a sense of shared identity among a group. They also incorporate behaviors that reduce status differences within the groups. Lastly, inclusive leaders foster employee participation and involvement in the decision-making process. From the very beginning of his presidency, Lincoln was clear on his stance of slavery. All throughout his presidency, he fought for those who could not fight for themselves. Many times in his speeches, he used inclusive language. Instead of using personal pronouns such as I or me, he used we and us. This was an effective way of reminding the nation, both the South and the North, that we are one and that everyone should be included. In his second inaugural address, he was noted for his introduction as well of the Bible and prayer, which he reminded the listeners that both Confederate and Union soldiers read the same Bible and prayed to the same God. This was an impactful way that Lincoln attempted to remove status differences within the nation. Abraham Lincoln truly considered the needs of all people, not only the slaves he was attempting to free, but also the needs of those fighting on the other side. In his noted second inaugural address, Lincoln stated, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne in the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Abraham Lincoln was an inclusive leader. The next leadership theory that we will discuss is authentic leadership. This approach focuses on the authenticity of leaders and their leadership. Authentic leadership is transparent, morally grounded, and responsive to people's needs and values. Authentic leaders have a genuine desire to serve others. They know themselves, and they feel free to lead from their core values. Like previously stated, Abraham Lincoln was clear on his stance of slavery from the beginning. He did not waver, even through opposition. Lincoln led compassionately, always considering the needs of those otherwise overlooked. He did not yield, although many disagreed with him, and he was willing to go to war in order to preserve the Union. Abraham Lincoln was an authentic leader. The next leadership theory that we will discuss is adaptive leadership. Adaptive leadership focuses on the adaptations required of people in response to the changing environments they may be in. This leadership stresses the behavior of leaders in relation to the work of the followers and the situations they are in. According to researcher Heifetz and his colleagues, there are 6 fundamental behaviors that adaptive leaders exhibit. First, adaptive leaders get on the balcony. This refers to leaders stepping back and seeing the big picture of the situation before reacting or responding. Next, adaptive leaders identify the adaptive challenge. Also, adaptive leaders regulate distress amongst their group. They establish an environment in which their followers feel safe tackling difficult problems or situations. Also, adaptive leaders maintain disciplined attention. They encourage their followers to focus on the tough work they need to do. Also, adaptive leaders give the work back to the people. Leaders recognize that they have a time of influence and also a time of allowing their followers to solve problems on their own. Lastly, adaptive leaders protect leadership voices from below. This refers to being careful to listen to and be open to the ideas of people who are typically underrepresented in an organization. Abraham Lincoln exemplified being an adaptive leader and was described as being a blend of steel and velvet. Carl Sandburg once wrote, "Abraham Lincoln is arguably the greatest man that this country has ever produced. He is also one of the most complex, a man of both steel and velvet. We like to remember Lincoln's softer side, but if he hadn't had the steel as well, we might not be one nation today." Lincoln often encouraged debate within his cabinet and sought for a win-win solution that would please both sides. Lincoln wasn't afraid to learn from his mistakes, and he remained steadfast in his goals amidst the pressures of the war. Abraham Lincoln was an adaptive leader. The final leadership approach that we will discuss is servant leadership. Servant leadership emphasizes leaders being attentive to the concerns of their followers. Servant leaders empathize with followers and nurture them. Servant leaders put their followers first and empower them and help them develop their full personal capacities. There are several behaviors of a servant leader that Northouse discusses. Servant leaders listen. They show empathy. They heal. They are aware. They persuade. They conceptualize. They have foresight. They steward. They have commitment. And they build community. Abraham Lincoln exemplified being a servant leader and was truly a man of the people. He kept himself accessible and listened to the people. He often drew attention away from himself in his speeches. Lincoln had a focus on the greater good all throughout his leadership. He truly was a servant leader. In conclusion, Abraham Lincoln was no doubt a great leader and understood what was required of him to become great. He continues to be an inspiration to those who long to be an effective leader and gives us many things to learn from.